There's only one guilty vote remaining now, one last negotiation, and the jury's job is done. But that vote is called, and even after all this back and forth, he is still certain Reed should be convicted. We are going way too deep into these psychological thoughts. He has told the other jurors. We are guessing at what he was thinking. We are guessing at what he knew. We are guessing at what he didn't know. Leroy Reed was a felon who bought a handgun. That's all the story Cole needs. Throughout this deliberation, Cole hasn't told any stories about himself. Other jurors have peppered their comments with asides, tales about their lives, revelations from their past, but not Carl. Carl's son told me that his father, who died in 2000, was the ideal fireman, a real follow the checklist, respect the chain of command kind of guy. Cole taught himself to rely on the practical, analytical logic of cost and benefits because during an emergency, that kind of thinking saves lives. So, Bolly embarks on a different kind of negotiation. It begins when a juror poses a question to Cole, an open ended inquiry. It appears to me that your decision that this man is guilty is very important and complete in your mind. Share more of that with us if you will. Cole shifts in his seat. I can't. He pauses. I don't have the education and the training to put myself into your class as far as being able to understand the human mind and how it works and what people think, he says. It sounds very cold and simplistic to look at three reasons and say yes, they made this and this, but to Cole, that's the whole case. Let me ask you one quick question. Another juror says, do you think there is ever a case where exceptions can be made? Sure, Cole replies. When I get Mr. Reed out there, and I look at him, to me, he is not a person that's gonna harm anyone. I don't think he had any ill intent. I don't feel he is a threat to society. But Cole explains that there is a bigger issue to consider here, a trade off of cost and benefits. If juries stop enforcing law, that's anarchy. Acquitting Leroy Reed could encourage other people to lawlessness. If it would help public safety, Cole says, he could see himself make an exemption and let someone go. But can't see any such benefits in Leroy Reed's case. Something important has just happened. Cole has revealed his deepest desire. He values public safety above all else. That's why he is pushing for a guilty verdict. In his practical mindset, a guilty verdict preserves law and order, keeps people protected. Bolly recognizes this as an opportunity to add something new to the table, to experiment with a different approach. For instance, what if an innocent verdict makes people even safer? You know, Bolly says, addressing his words to the room, though his intended audience is called. I think this is a good law, and I don't want to say or do anything that suggests that I don't take this law seriously. But still, he says he's frustrated. Part of what's motivating me is that I have got a lot of other things to do. This is final week, and he has a lot of work at the university. What's more, my students have been the victim of crime. A week ago, a woman in one of my class was walking to my class and she was assaulted. Another woman in a class I was teaching at the time was assaulted. She was beaten and she was raped. So I want to do my civics duty. He continues, I have got a lot of other things to do. I come down here to the courthouse and the DA gives me this case. And in spite of this awesome room and these very serious people, And in spite of their lovely dog and pony show and the legal rigmarole, I am short of sitting to myself thinking, this is Mickey Mouse. I mean, I really don't feel that this is a justified expenditure of my time. They could be putting a thief behind bars, or a rapist, or a murderer. Instead, they are debating whether Leroy Reed, someone who poses no real threat to public safety, should go to jail. I'm thinking of a message I would like to send the DS office. Believe me, I would love to send them a message, and the message would be, damn it to hell. I'm afraid to walk to my car in the parking lot. I have got women students who are being mugged, who are being beaten, who are being raped. The same thing is happening to my male students. They are being mugged. And you give me Leroy? If they acquit Reed, Bolly tells the room, they are sending a message to the police and the district attorney. Focus on the real criminals. Focus on keeping the public genuinely protected. By finding Reed innocent, they are actually helping public safety. It's a creative take on the situation, for sure. But he is applying reason, comparing potential drawbacks with expected gains. He is using practical analytical logic to add new options to the conversation. He is aligning with Carl and arguing that if they care about stopping crime, the rational choice is letting Reed go free. Definitely he shouldn't be here, Cole says. He still isn't completely convinced though. So, Bolly offers one last bargain. I have an enormous amount of respect for your sense of importance of the law, he tells Cole. Your sense of the importance of getting it right and your dedication to the integrity of judicial process. There is a cost of changing one's mind, Bolly knows, an expense paid by our ego, but there is a benefit as well. The esteem and self respect that comes from doing the right thing. As the conversation continues, it's unclear how Cole is processing all of this, but he is thinking. Let's say we take a vote on it. The four-person asks as they approach 2.5 hours of deliberation. Each juror takes a piece of paper and scribbles their verdict. Not guilty, not guilty, not guilty, not guilty, not guilty. Leroy Reed will go free. How do we connect during a what's this really about conversation? The first step is trying to figure out what each of us want from a discussion, what we are seeking from this dialogue. That's how we get at the deeper question beneath the surface. Bolly connected with his fellow jurors by understanding that each person wanted something different. Some wanted to talk about justice, others wanted to focus on law and order. Some wanted facts, others craved empathy. Dr. Redeye connected with his patients by asking about what mattered to them most. We unearth these kind of desires by taking the time to ask what's this really about. When someone says, can we talk about the upcoming meeting, or that memo was crazy, right? Or worries allowed, I'm not sure he can get the job done. They are inviting us into a what's this really about discussion, signaling there's something deeper they want to discuss. Bolly knew how to listen for those signals, and Dr. Redeye learned how to look for them. Then, once we know what people want from a conversation, we next need to work out how to give it to them, how to engage in a quiet negotiation so that their needs are met as well as our own. That requires conducting experiments to reveal how we will make a discussion together. This is the matching principle at work, recognizing what kind of conversation is occurring and then aligning with others and inviting them to align with us. Bolly and Redeye understood that matching isn't mimicry. It's not simply looking concerned and repeating back what others have said. Rather, matching is understanding someone's mindset, what kind of logic they find persuasive, what tone and approach makes sense to them, and then speaking their language. And it requires explaining clearly how we ourselves are thinking and making choices so that others can match us in return. When someone describes a personal problem by telling a story, they are signaling they want our compassion rather than a solution. When they lay out all the facts analytically, they are signaling they are more interested in a rational conversation than an emotional one. We can all learn to get better at noticing these clues and conducting the experiments that reveal them. The most profound gift of the What's This Really About conversation is a chance to learn what others want to talk about, what they need out of a discussion, and inviting everyone to make choices together. That is when we begin to understand one another and start finding solutions that are better than anything we could dream up on our own.